It was college, and my roommate at the time was walking with a mutual friend talking about me, both discussing how much I asked them out, but they cannot find the time to actually hang out, all while hanging out with each other. I was hurt. I sounded desperate to them, but in my head, I just assumed if you say you like someone, you make time to hang out with them. Yet that was the thing about having a con man addict for a dad. He taught me to see words as a person's emotional reality and not their actions. Oddly, it would be an overwhelmingly long time till I realized that if they really like you, you will not even have to find them talking about how much you asked to ask them to hang out, because they actually will be hanging out with you. If there's one thing I love to do in this city is walk around. It's free, and New York is a concrete jungle that allows you to observe the absolutely majestic and most menacing animal of all, humanity. The irony is that for being an island of over 11 million people, somehow you run into the same faces. Perhaps it's a karmic attachment that does not quite shake, because ironically, my worst fear is re-meeting an enemy at a party or on the street, yet I hardly ever do. Once someone is gone in my life, for the most part, they stay gone. It was a sunny day, and there they were, the 45-year hoes, they called themselves, and had a group chat that I was a part of called Slut Summer. It was a funny chat of their sexual misadventures, but the truth is, it was a comedic tragedy of a group of people that were heading into a midlife crisis and were terrified that they would continue to stay alone. The Libra energy was at its maximus, and what I failed to realize was two things. They were 15 years older than me and were only friends with each other because they were waiting for that magical, mystical partner that would give them a sense of life and identity, like Andrew. Thus, I could not understand why it hurt me that they abandoned me. They were on a different mission and stage in life, of which, frankly, they were not that fun or chill about. All my life, I have had much older friends, or 5 year younger ones, which I'm trying to see if that's normal. The truth is, I'm adaptable, and I've always found because I was deemed an old soul, I landed with and enjoyed older friends, yet had a real problem that most victims have as well. I don't judge, or at least have carried such a low self esteem that I feel too small or potentially cruel to see that red flags are warnings for a reason. In my head, I live as my father taught me. No one is perfect, which means they will harm you and you should still love them. I say this because we confuse judging people for being their jury. Often in my life, I thought to judge someone as someone I did not like or could not fit into my world was me being mean, because there were so many times I did not want my dad. His yelling, his complaining, his lying, and his overall mess. Yet I was scolded and told I was being punishing, when in fact I was being clear and creating something my family would really hate, a boundary. Yet you are not punishing someone by not letting them into your life and heart. You do that if you gossip about them, plot against them, or think that somehow, despite no display of immorality or criminality on their part, you are better than them. The truth is, I was never allowed to dislike people, but often found myself surrounded by people that either disliked everyone, like my dad did, or disliked themselves, which was also like my dad did. The 45-year hoes were no different, and really realizing that opened me up to a wound I was not seeing, my abandonment. Thus, as I saw them brunching, and I realized that they had stopped inviting me out, and that the slut summer chat had gotten really quiet, I decided to just keep on moving, enjoying the summer's day, and accepting that I don't have to be a part of people's lives. In the same way, they just don't have to be a part of mine. All right, let's discuss, let's heal. So, the 45-year hose. So, it's something that I've realized. I either have like 5 years, 6 year younger friends, or like 15-year, 20-year, 30-year older friends. I don't know why that age gap, and I hope like I don't find out in one of like the letters that people send me that I'm a psychopath and it's actually like an early sign of a potential serial killer. But it is something that I have noted all my life. I always had much older friends. I One of the things about that I always get a little tenuous about in terms of children being called old souls is that by age 5 I was aged. My father acted like I was his 25-year-old girlfriend. And the energy that I got to excuse the adult's misbehavior was that I was an old soul. And I was very adult for being a kid, which means I had to handle adult issues and I had to straighten up, and I couldn't have normal kids' reaction like cry or be angry or say no. I had to be an adult, and adults are defined by how they handle problems. And what I realized is I don't let myself judge people. And it's been a real impediment in terms of deciding who should enter my life, who I should really enter a relationship with. And it's something that I'm noticing now. And in the last year, I'm like, I'm so glad I'm disliking people. It is such a nice, beautiful feeling to be like, you know what? I'm not going to hang out with you. I'm not even going to outreach. I'm done. Because my father was just so despicable in his behavior and so detestable in his demeanor. And I was taught that if I didn't like that, I was being not only a bad daughter, but I was being a bad human being. And that adults understand that other adults are messy, and you don't throw someone away or judge someone for their mess. But the truth is, you do. You don't have to handle people's messes. And I think what I'm trying to learn is I should judge people. I should judge people for how they run their life, for how they behave, for all aspects of their life. Because even the fact that you judge people, my father was incredibly materialistic, and he went from the brokest man to a wealthy one. But he didn't, obviously he did schemes and cons and fraud, but he really just saw the wealthy part, which is why I kind of admired him, because my father always looked at the destination. He didn't look at the journey. If at the end of the day he was a rich man, it didn't matter who he hurt, who he stole from, who he made cry, who he lied, he was rich. And there's something about that that is valuable to learn. I mean, I don't want to harm people, but I even have, my father's abuse of me has made me even struggle to say things that I am, like a good person. Like, he had no problem saying he was a good person, despite all the harm and havoc his very existence caused in other people's lives. So, but yet me, I find that I struggle with labels. I struggle saying I'm a good person. I struggle calling myself someone else's best friend, even if they called me it. I struggle saying I'm an artist, even if I'm an artist. Even if I'm a writer, I'm literally writing. And yet owning a label and owning a word is extremely powerful and useful. I mean, we see it all the time. We don't even want to call the Palestinian genocide a genocide. But then it's like, if we don't label what is happening, it brings leeway for people to say, then, is it happening? And it's words have been a very important conversation. I mean, the United Healthcare CEO, the assassination. I mean, we have somebody who was murdered, but has also systemically murdered a lot of people. But he isn't called a murderer; he's called a CEO. And it's making people kind of reanalyze their relationship with words and power, and this haze we've been living in, that if a thief is formal, like my dad, then he's a lawyer. You know what I mean? It's just this weird thing we do. If he's a formal criminal, then he's a lawyer, you know? And the 45-year hose, I met one of them like casually, and we just started chatting. I met Andrew. He was a part of the 45-year hose. And I met him and I started hanging out with him. And I think what I realize now, I passed them by and they were all having brunch. And I feel like I didn't even say that. That's where I caught them. They were all having brunch, and I was at a distance because what I wanted to do with the story was juxtapose how sometimes we really relive a moment. And in college, I caught my roommate speaking with another friend about. They didn't know I was listening because it was the most random thing. I was just walking. I saw them at the lunch hall, and I was going to go say hi. And I guess, I don't know, maybe in perspective, I'm saying they speak loudly, but I heard them. And they were talking about me, and they were talking about how I always ask them to hang out, but they don't, they feel bad because they don't. And it was one of those moments where I was really hurt because I sounded like they acted like I was so desperate to hang out with them, and I was like rage texting them every day. But like, first of all, I was your roommate. Second of all, we're a part of a group of mutual friends, so I do see you. I'm just asking like for a coffee one on one. And it's one of the things that I'm starting to realize: when people actually like you, they make time for you. When people actually like you, they invite you out. And a lot of my relationships, they start out with like really big and love bomby and romanticized just to end up a dud. And I caught these two friends saying that, and it was like, I swear it was like Wicked, I'm Not That Girl. When Alphabet's like watching Glinda with Fiero, like, don't wish, don't start. I might as well have sung that in the middle of the hall. But I just hated that what I realized is they didn't really like me. They just didn't. And when you're trying to make people who don't like you, they exaggerate everything you do to somehow being annoying. You really did just ask them out for a coffee. But it's kind of like, when you're a little kid and that one time you didn't take out the garbage suddenly becomes you never take out the garbage, right? It's this: when I don't like you, when I'm annoyed by you, when I'm exhausted by you, it's this kind of complete exaggeration of your being. And I didn't take that as rejection and as it's time to back away from these people, because that's what my father did to me all the time. I said hi, and I had the why are you talking like that? You have such a funny voice. Why do you do that? You know, in perspective, I'm like, this is not only child abuse, but what is wrong with you, sir? You are an old man. But that type of energy has trailed me. So when I was walking on this sunny day and I saw the 45-year hose, it was like this moment of, wow, they're not only hanging out without me, but I realized that I think I got muted from the chat or something, or I have to go check because it went from the most active chat to suddenly quiet. And I realized that I had gone from like super immersed in this group, we were hanging out all the time, to absolutely isolated. And what bothered me was that I had seen them prior isolate another guy who was very, very sexual and very, very deviant. And I don't even know how he ended up in the group chat. I think, Lucy was a part of the group, and Lucy is she's a very social climber energy. She tries to see what people will give her. And one thing that I noticed about her that is very common in narcissists or people with narcissistic tendencies is they're very, very good with strangers. They love to be the warmest person to a new person until they realize that this new person is not going to be really make them feel anything new about themselves, and suddenly they're an old stale person. So he came in, he started to hang out, and he was just on 10. And then they isolated him from the group. He got exited out of the group, probably similar to me. And I thought in my head, oh my God, they totally did that to me. And I felt hurt because I didn't do anything. I'm not this wild, crazy thing. I'm not trying to be the center of attention. I just happen to be. But then I realized, like, I'm feeling abandoned and hurt that these 45-year-old existential crisis people, that, every time we hung out, it was only about them having sex, really wanting to fall in love, not understanding why they don't fall in love. You could listen to Worms, which is where I talk about Andrew. And I realized there's not only an age gap, but there's a stage gap. I am just not in that place of, I don't know if I ever will be, of such urgency to be in a relationship, as if I have no identity beyond the person I'm with, which is why I'm like, there's some Libra energy to the Maximus. Um, I just, they were so desperate and they weren't that funny and relaxed for how they wanted to look funny and relaxed because they had the group chat Slut Summer. And at first, I talked about this before, even on this very episode. I do get a little wide eyed with people. I do get a little romanticizing with people, particularly new people. And when I see red flags, I just, my father taught me act like you don't see them. It's really mean to not be accepting of everybody. But there's a difference between being accepting of everybody and accepting everybody into your life. And when you have an a, an addict, a con man for a dad, they eradicate that difference. You have to let everyone in because if not, you're going to end up alone. You have to like everybody because if not, you're dislikable, you know? And there they were brunching, which I guess I didn't mention in the story. I really have to do a rewrite. Look up the rewrite on daddyrecovery.com for more details. But they were brunching, and I did this, flashback to that college moment of seeing that people were living without me. And I was still living for people. I was still, I talked about it before in a prior episode, living on that popsicle energy of just waiting for people to take me out of the freezer so I could have some flavor and enjoy my cherry, you know? Um, and I felt really, really hurt. And I stayed hurt for a while because I couldn't believe, my ego was saying, look at these 45-year-old hoes that are just sleeping around, praying that somebody they slept with marries them, and they don't like you, but I also felt like I didn't really like them. I was still running on that just take what you can get energy. If they knock on your door, open it energy, which was, the side effect of having an abusive dad. And I don't they were mean and they were aimless. And I stayed with them because I thought because they let me. And when they didn't let me, I was hurt because they were mean and aimless. And I thought, damn, even mean, aimless people don't want me, aka my dad. And what I'm trying to overcome, particularly with that, loss of those friendships, is this real kind of acknowledgement that there are red flags. They're a good 15 years older. They only want relationships, and their friendship is based on wanting a relationship. Because what I noticed too is we were a group of like five or six. Two of them entered a relationship, and we didn't see them anymore. They're gone. They are loving it up with their partners. They're very happy. But it is this kind of thing that I noticed of it was almost like our entire friendship was at an airport lounge and we were just waiting for each other to take a flight. And that's not really friendship because you are very lightheartedly trauma bonding. And when I look back at all our conversations, it was just about like dating and just hoping and just, oh my God, dating. And I don't know, maybe it's because as a child, I picked up pretty on via my dad and via other men in my family that men can really destroy your life and they can really sabotage you, especially as a woman. So if you make them your identity, or if you make the children you have with them your identity, once those kids grow up, or once you find them cheating again, or once they cross this absolutely horrendous line, like stealing from you or beating you, and you can't really go back, you almost feel faceless. And that was the thing about the 45-year hoes. They had no face. They were just empty people floating around looking for fullness. And they defined fullness as falling in love and being in a relationship. I don't even know if it's falling in love because they were always, they were in these 2 week romances. And I don't say that to debase them. That's what they were. I say that because I was once again trying to make genuinely deep bonds with people that were really apparent even with each other. That's not what I'm looking for. Like, I'm really not looking to bond with you. I'm looking for entertainment until I find the person I want to bond with. And there I was catching another group of friends that really didn't like me. And I didn't like them. And I thought to myself, holy guacamole. It's always weird to see how you haven't grown. And it was this moment of like, I was living in two timelines. I was living in that moment in college that always stayed with me. And I'm living like across the street watching my friends that for a while we were the crew having brunch with me and probably having the same conversations they always have without me. And I thought that old feeling of waiting for people to like me without really asking if I liked them, I just thought, wow, I haven't fixed that. I haven't gotten over that. That's weird. Because in the same way I'm like, they're too old to be kind of living in this high school mentality of will the football, they're the football coach. They're not the quarterback, but they were still waiting for the quarterback to call them. In the same way, they're too old to be living in that high school mentality. In some ways, I'm too old to be living in that college mentality because that was a college instance. And I thought, oh no, we are being trapped in timelines and I'm not liking it. And I don't mean to be ageist with them in that sense, because it's not even ageism, it's just this feeling of when do we grow up? When do we actually become the better we always promise ourselves to be? And there's something ungrown about believing that any relationship outside of you will somehow make you feel like you finally have a relationship with you. And they were people that having a man activated them, having a partner activated them. And of course it does. Love will always activate you. But I don't want to feel dormant until I finally find someone. And I don't think that's fair to the person that I find. And it's something I've seen a lot. Like, I've been surprisingly empty for a long time, even when trying to fill these relationships that were only further emptying me. And I don't want my next relationship, my next big, the one relationship, for me to enter with that energy and for me to erase myself because this person is with me and suddenly it's their world, not mine. I really want to have my own world because that relationship eventually fades, A. And B, it is kind of unfair and an inevitable resentment to make somebody your world and watch them not make you theirs. And worse, as in many of my situations, not even technically invite you into their world. Check out AddieRecovery.com. Check out Hadideen on all music platforms. Let's love, baby.